So I was wondering the other day, why are Republicans engaging in this big lie that Donald Trump actually won the election? They seem insistent on it, and yet the evidence keeps coming back that it's just false. Well, the thought occurred to me that's kind of a scary thought, is that the big lie is not about the last election, it's about the next one. Let's talk about it in today's video. Hi, I'm Mike Greiner. I'm a lifelong Democratic activist who's concerned about the direction our country is taking. If you share my concerns, maybe you could like this video and subscribe to this channel, maybe even click that little bell that will notify you when I post something new. So what made me think more about the big lie was when I posted a video the other day talking about the Arizona election audit, and I'll post a link to it right over here. And what that election audit showed, clear as day, is that Joe Biden won by an even bigger margin in Arizona than was originally thought. Now, this was the group Cyber Ninjas, who was basically brought in by the Republican state Senate to try to find a way to help Trump win the election. They couldn't even accomplish that. Nevertheless, despite the fact that the report clearly stated that their finding is that Biden won by an even bigger margin than had originally been reported, I still am receiving comments from all kinds of members of the MAGA crowd claiming that the report somehow claimed that Trump had actually won the election, which is exactly the opposite of what the report says. What's more, I just saw headlines the other day about how the Trump lawyers are literally flirting with bankruptcy because of all the sanctions that courts have assessed against them for basically lying in court and arguing cases without any factual basis. I read that 60 lawsuits have been filed to try to get Trump to win the last election, and every single one of them has failed. Many of the judges who dismissed these cases were actually appointed by Republicans. And yet, the Republicans keep pushing the big lie. We just heard that in Texas, and in Pennsylvania, and in Wisconsin. There's still an effort to try to get an audit going in those states as well, even in my home state here in Michigan. And truth be told, in many of these states, including Michigan, it really wasn't that close. Biden won by a bigger margin here than Trump won 4 years ago. So why are they continuing to make a big deal out of this? Well, it's easy for us to kind of poo-poo their behavior and say, oh, you know, they complained about the fact that we liberals didn't accept the election of Trump. But certainly, we at least acknowledge the fact that he'd won the election, even though he'd lost the popular vote. Republicans can't even acknowledge the fact that he both lost the election and the popular vote. And they keep relitigating this issue, trying to find some way to assert that they actually won the election. At this point, it's clear that if there is any evidence found that Biden did not win the election, it's because of pure manipulation on the part of the Republicans. Nevertheless, the myth just keeps on going. So why are they so intently committed to this idea? I know. I've read the academic literature that talks about motivated reasoning and cognitive dissonance, and where people just want facts that agree with what they believe. But at a certain point, the facts are clear. I mean, I just saw an editorial in the New York Times the other day where you had Christy Todd Whitman, former Republican governor of New Jersey, saying that she, as a Republican, and other Republicans are calling for people to elect Democrats to essentially purge the Republican Party of its extreme form of Trumpism. So why do they keep doing this? Again, just saying that, oh, they can't accept the result, at some point kind of loses its appeal. At some point, you think people would get tired of it and move on, but they're not getting tired of it and moving on. Instead, they just keep on going with this ridiculous myth. So why are they doing this? And the thought occurred to me, and suddenly I got very scared, that this is not about the last election, this is about the next election. Republicans intend to steal the next election. Don't doubt that for 1 second. The way that Trump and his supporters are going around replacing elections officials across the country with loyalists who are committed to the idea of the big lie and who won't be honest arbiters of the electoral process the way that people like Brad Raffensperger were in Georgia. They want people who have no respect for democracy and only care about achieving the goals that MAGAism and Trumpism have. But how will they respond to the accusations when Democrats argue, hey, you're stealing the election, you're destroying our democracy? Well, by clinging to the idea of the big lie, they're able to justify it in their own minds by saying, well, hey, Democrats stole the last election, so we're just doing back to them what they did to us. The fact that there is absolutely no factual basis whatsoever doesn't matter. The fact that one court after another and one recount after another have looked at the results and found repeatedly that Biden won the election and that they can't change that. None of that matters. They want to be in a position after the next election where they can claim that turnabout is fair play. And so by clinging to this idea that the Republicans actually won the last presidential election, no matter how false it is, no matter how many times it gets proven to be false, no matter how ridiculous it is at this point, they're going to do that, and they're not going to lose interest in it simply because of the fact that it's something in the past and they kind of move on with their lives. No, this is a preparation for the next election, when they do plan on shamelessly stealing the election, no matter what the results are, and they're positioning themselves to do it now. And because of the fact that they can simply say, oh, well, the Democrats stole the last election, somehow that will justify in their own minds any efforts that they go to steal the next one. This realization, I gotta tell you, really gave me shivers. It scared me more than any horror movie could. And I would hope that it would scare all Democrats, particularly Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema. Because, of course, right now, Joe Manchin and Senator Amy Klobuchar have negotiated an excellent piece of electoral reform legislation. My hope is, because of the fact that Senator Manchin himself has put so much work into this legislation, that he will be willing to carve some kind of exception into the filibuster to allow electoral reform legislation to pass. Because the truth of the matter is, unless we pass some serious reform legislation, the Republicans are setting themselves up to steal the next election right in plain view. And if you think I'm being extreme here, you should know that a couple of years ago, I had actually written an article on Medium that talked about the fact that Trump wasn't going to want to leave office and wasn't going to leave office willingly. I remember some of the comments talking about how ridiculous it was and how this was some kind of fantasy. And well, here we are. So given the reality that we're operating in and the behavior of the Republicans, I think that not being concerned about the future of our democracy is really the foolish approach. To believe that Republicans will be fair players in the next election based upon everything that we've seen going on over the past few years really just shows that you're kidding yourself. And you can package up the big lie along with their efforts to disenfranchise voters and their efforts to replace honest elected officials with loyal Trumpists as all part and parcel with their overall effort to seize power in the next election, no matter what the voters say. Well, if you agree with me or disagree with me, I'd love to see your comments down below. And if you could leave a like and maybe subscribe to this channel, that'd be a huge help. I'll see you in the next video. In the meantime, let's actually hope for some progress here. Thanks for watching.